before the next election. That cannot be the case. I think it's very important that the Supreme Court recognize that what he's doing is a delaying tactic, and that the American people, it cannot be the case that a president of the United States can attempt to overturn an election and seize power, and that our justice system is incapable of holding a trial, of holding him to account before the next election. That cannot be the case. I think it's very important that the Supreme Court recognize that what he's doing is a delaying tactic, and that the American people, it cannot be the case that...
Such a sick man. He's so sick. Anyway, no, it hasn't impacted me at all.
How much has the whole 2020 election and everything that has flowed from it pissed you off?
Oh, I mean, you can't go a day without thinking about what he's done to this country, because he's such a little baby that he's thrown 250 years of democracy out the window by not accepting the results of an... I mean, it's so crazy. He's such a sociopath. He's so insane. He just couldn't admit to losing. And we know he lost. He knows he lost. And look how he's fooled everybody. He's convinced all these people that he didn't lose. He's such a sick man. He's so sick. Anyway, no, it hasn't impacted me at all.
Anywhere near the Oval Office. He cannot be the next president, because if he is, all of the things that he attempted to do, but was stopped from doing by responsible people around him at the Department of Justice, at the White House counsel's office, all of those things he will do. There will be no guardrails, and everyone has been warned. After January 6th, after our investigation, after all of the evidence that we laid out about all of the steps in his multi-part plan to overturn the election, there can be no question that he will unravel the institutions of our democracy. So we are facing a moment in American politics where we have to set aside partisanship, and we have to make sure that people who believe in the Constitution are willing to come together to prevent him from ever again setting foot anywhere near the Oval Office. He cannot be the next president, because if he is, all of the things that he attempted to do, but was stopped from doing by responsible people around him at the Department of Justice, at the White House counsel's office, all of those things he will do.
Money. I don't need anything. I don't need campaign contributions. I don't need lobbyists. I don't need special interests helping me. The only thing I need is to do what's right for the country. That's all. I don't need money. I don't need anything. I don't need campaign contributions.
Extraordinary moment. The first president.
Okay, actually, I'm going to interrupt you a second and show you. There is former President Trump waving to a few people as he's led through a flank of Secret Service and court police. See the back of his head now as he makes his way to the courthouse.
Really believe this is a very sad day for America. This should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. We did nothing wrong at all, and we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think it's very dishonest.
That's accurate. He has every right to challenge an election. And in fact, Jamie Gangel, as you know, he exercised those rights, and then he went beyond it.
Right. He exercised them, and he lost over and over again. 61 out of 62 court cases in battleground states. The Supreme Court declined to hear his case twice. That's a court where he appointed
He has some friends
a
on
lot
the
of
court.
justices.
Yeah.
There were 3 recounts in Georgia. And let's just remember his own Attorney General, Bill Barr, on December 1st said that there was no widespread fraud. Chris Krebs, who is in charge of election security, was a Republican, was fired because he said it was the most secure election ever. White House counsel, Republican after Republican. I just want to say about his election denial again today. This is why former Congresswoman Liz Cheney and many other Republicans who have, there weren't so many who stood up to him, but those who did, have said he remains a clear and present danger. When he says this over and over again, it is a campaign slogan, but it also could lead to violence.
And here it is. If you want to go out and get it, you can go out and get it. Have fun with it.
I might look at it and scratch my head and go, well, wouldn't you be ashamed of a mugshot? But not Donald Trump. The fact that Trump has never surrender on his shirt when he was literally surrendering perfectly sums up Trump, because it shows it doesn't matter. The base doesn't care. Instead, he turned it into a celebration, another gimmick to grift money from his supporters who are just all too happy to give him the money.
Since my mugshot was released, our campaign has raised over $10 million. The people get it.
You have to look at it. How does it benefit him politically or personally? Now it's financially. I mean, the guy is struggling financially.
If he loses in November at a recent rally.
This is fantastic. After Donald
if you listen,
what did you hear?
I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country.
At this point in the game, trying to parse a word like bloodbath strikes me as being entirely absurd. He's violent. In the same speech, he calls the people, hundreds and over thousands, who beat up cops a block or two away from where we're sitting today. He called them unbelievable patriots. This is violence, violence, violence. So when he says the word bloodbath, he knows what he's doing, whether he means an economic bloodbath or something else. In the same speech, he is endorsing political violence. And then when he says, you'll never have another election again if I don't win, well, that too has a tone of violence to it as well. The only way to take power would then be to use violence if there are no elections.
What did you hear? I mean, you worked for Trump for some time. You obviously resigned, as I noted, on after
be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath for our country. Replying to S. Coop here. So, those of you who don't know, Donald Trump said, and I quote, if I'm not elected, it's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a bloodbath for our country. End of quote. This type of rhetoric is reminiscent of January 6th speech, where this insurrectionist idiot said that January 6th is going to be wild. Now, obviously, he knew something that we didn't. Absolutely incomprehensible for a former president to say this to the American people. Donald Trump has betrayed his supporters that once bestowed and put the power into him to serve as president. He knows it. He's perpetuated all this nonsense. He's blowing these dog whistles that are blatantly to cause chaos. Question for America. What would it look like if the men or women coaches of the NCAA basketball March Madness, what if they were to say, if we don't get in the selection, the championship selection, it's going to be a bloodbath? What would you think about that? These coaches have influence on their fans. What would you think if the coaches were to say that? That type of rhetoric coming from anyone who holds influence over so many is morally unprecedented and uncalled for. What are you conveying to Americans? For me, when I hear these dog whistles coming from Donald Trump, what do I hear? I hear that he thinks that he's above the law, and there are no rules in our society that can put the guardrails on him. There are no rules in our society that can do checks and balances on him. I hear that he's above the law. That's what I think he thinks. You see, in his mind, he thinks that rules in our society don't mean anything to him and him only. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't apply to him at all. The 3 SCOTUSes he's placed on the bench, Judge Eileen Cannon that's down south, all the sycophants in Congress, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Jim Jordans, the Gates, the Bobears, and some of the old corrupt politicians. In his mind, he believes that he can do anything that he wants to do. And that's why he can get away was saying things and blowing dog whistles like it's going to be a bloodbath if he's not elected. And America is sick and tired of it. I got something else for you, you MAGA cult followers. Did you not see and witness Trump trying to use our own military to try to forcibly remove peaceful protesters in D.C.? Did you not see that he was willing to shoot Americans in the street to cause chaos? So when he says or referred to it's going to be a bloodbath if he's not elected, don't you realize that this is his goal to play this out in the streets of America? Simply put, he lives for chaos, and he desperately wants to be a hero that swoops in to save the day by his own doing. See, Donald Trump, he gets off on this light the match, throw the torch, hide your hand type of shit. Those same dog whistles that he was sending in January 6th, the same damn dog whistles he's sending today. He knows the influence that he has. If he didn't, he wouldn't have rehearsed it on January 6th. See, that was the rehearsal. This time coming around, he's portraying it right now, a bloodbath. He wants a civil war of some sort, or he wants chaos in the streets if he's not elected. Why should voters give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt of being a responsible, law-abiding president for all Americans? And the answer is simple. We shouldn't. This November election period, show up and show out. And oh, by the way, Stephen Miller, we see your little sneaky ass pulling strings behind the curtains. We see you. We see you, Steve Bannon. Oh, we watching you. See, the fact of the matter is this. Trump can't do all of this on his own. He needs sycophants. Sycophants like you, Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon, and the rest of you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Jim Jordan, Gates, Boebert, and some of the other corrupt billionaires out there. He cannot do this alone. And that's what scares America the most. Corrupt members of Congress, corrupt members of the court. And lastly, who the hell is sending text messages, emails, or using social media platforms on Trump's behalf as though he's doing it? We all know that he's not tweeting or Truth Social, whatever they call that. We all know he doesn't send emails. We all know that he can't read. He doesn't know how to spell. So who's doing it? Or is it someone behind the scenes? Whoever it is, Jack Smith probably needs to subpoena them. So that's my take, Scoop. Put down your phones. Pick up a ballot. Deuces.
If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. Now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it. Now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole, that's going to be the least of it. It's going to be a bloodbath for the country. That'll be the least of it.
Hello friends, we come to the end already. Have you subscribed yet? Yes, press the subscribe button and the like button and the share button. Thank you and have a nice day.